He was small for his age and moved through the apartment like a careful shadow, learning which floorboards cried out and which corners stayed quiet. The building groaned with old pipes and tired walls, and he learned their moods the way other children learned bedtime stories. He learned when the heat would fail and when the water would run cold, and he learned that waiting did not always bring someone back. The baby dragon name stuck because of his hair that stood up in fierce red curls and because of the way his eyes held fire even when his body felt weak. Neighbors whispered it once, and it followed him like a myth that refused to die. A child with dragon blood, they joked, never knowing how close the story felt to truth for him. Days blended together, measured by light through the window and the sounds of traffic below. He counted hours by hunger and by the echo of his own footsteps moving from room to room. He opened cabinets that answered with emptiness, and he closed them gently, as if noise might scare food into appearing at night. He wrapped himself in a thin blanket and imagined scales forming around him, armor against cold and fear. He imagined flames in his chest that could keep him warm if he focused hard enough. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it did not, but pretending gave him strength, and strength was something he refused to lose. He remembered laughter once, the shape of a voice, the warmth of hands, but memory faded. When survival took the front seat, he stopped asking questions that had no answers and started planning in quiet, careful ways. He lined up cans and counted coins and stared at his toys with new eyes. Not as friends but as possibilities. The city outside never slept, and that helped him feel less alone. Lights stayed on, cars moved, people talked, somewhere, always somewhere, but inside the apartment, silence pressed close and heavy. It taught him to listen to himself, to trust his instincts, to grow up faster than he should have. This was the beginning. Before the market, before the selling, before the human who would change everything, this was the part where the baby dragon learned how to stand alone in the fire and not disappear. Morning came without ceremony. The sun slid through dirty blinds and rested on the floor like it was unsure it belonged there. The baby dragon woke to the familiar ache in his stomach, a slow twisting reminder that time did not pause for children who were waiting. He searched the apartment again, though he already knew the outcome. He checked the fridge, then the freezer, then the cabinets, moving slower each time, as if delay could change reality. There was nothing left but a half-empty bottle of water and a packet of salt. He did not open either, saving them for a worse day, because worse days always came. School hours passed outside his window. He watched other kids walk by, laughing, pushing each other backpacks, bouncing with weight. He wondered what it felt like to carry something that heavy and not be afraid it would be taken away. Hunger sharpened his thoughts, made the world feel brighter, louder, harsher. He learned how to ignore it by focusing on small tasks, folding the blanket, stacking books, lining up toys by size and color. Pretending order meant control. Pretending control meant safety. Time stretched thin and fragile. He paced the floor, counted steps, memorized cracks in the ceiling, and listened to the building breathe around him. Pipes knocked somewhere above, a door slammed below. Life continued whether he joined it or not. When afternoon arrived, his legs felt weak and his hands shook slightly. He drank a mouthful of water and sat by the window, letting the cold glass press against his skin, grounding him, reminding him he was still here, still real. A decision formed quietly, not brave, not dramatic, just necessary. He looked at his toys again, this time without hesitation. He understood what they were now: not memories, not comfort, but fuel, and fuel meant survival. By evening, the baby dragon stood taller than he had that morning, not because he was stronger, but because he had chosen to act. And in a world that ignored him, choosing to move forward was its own kind of fire. Spread the toys across the floor with care, like he was preparing them for a journey. They did not understand the plastic dragon with one missing wing, the small car whose paint had worn thin, the puzzle with a corner piece gone. Each one held a moment of comfort, a moment of forgetting hunger. For a while he picked them up one by one, feeling their weight, testing what they might be worth in a world that measured everything in money. He practiced holding them out in his hands, imagining strangers' faces, imagining their voices asking questions. He did not want to answer. The backpack was old, but strong enough. He placed the toys inside gently, then paused, holding the last one. A soft stuffed animal, faded from years of being held at night. This one had a name and a voice in his head. It had been there during storms and silence and nights when sleep would not come. He hesitated longer with this one, pressing it to his chest, breathing in the familiar scent of dust and safety, before setting it aside. This one would stay for now. He needed something to come back to. The hallway outside the apartment felt longer than usual. Every step echoed too loudly, and he worried Someone would stop him, ask him where he was going, ask him why he was alone, but no one did. The city was good at looking. Away outside the air was colder, sharper. It filled his lungs and made him feel small and exposed. He adjusted the straps on his shoulders and started walking toward the street he had seen markets set up on weekends where people sold things they no longer wanted. With every step, the weight of the bag pressed down, reminding him of what he was doing, reminding him that childhood was being traded for food and time. His hands clenched and unclenched as he walked, steady and silent. When the market finally came into view, noise and movement surrounded him, voices, laughter, bargaining, music. It was overwhelming, but he did not stop. The baby dragon stepped forward into the crowd, carrying everything he had left to give it. Market swallowed him whole. Colors clashed, voices overlapped, and smells mixed together. Food, metal, sweat, and dust. It was too much and not enough at the same time. He stood still for a moment, grounding himself, feeling the weight of the bag and the steady beat of his heart. Tables stretched in uneven lines, covered with objects that once mattered to someone else. He chose a small, empty space near the edge. Not brave enough for the center, not invisible either. He set the toys down carefully, arranging them so they looked worth stopping for, even if he did not feel that way himself. People passed without slowing, their eyes slid over him like water over stone. Some glanced at the toys, some glanced at him, and then away faster. The baby dragon learned quickly which looks meant curiosity, and which meant discomfort. Adults did not like to see children alone. It reminded them of things they preferred not to think about. The first buyer was an older man, who picked up the plastic dragon, turned it over, and frowned. He offered a price that felt like an insult, but the boy nodded anyway because hunger did not allow pride. The exchange was quick. The toy was gone, and coins were pressed into his palm, cold and real. He stood there, staring at the empty space where it had been, fighting the urge to cry, not because the toy was gone, but because the choice had worked. Survival hurt, but it worked. More people came. Some kinder, some careless. Each sale chipped away at the small pile, and at something inside him. He learned to smile at the right moments, to speak softly, to not explain too much. He learned that stories lowered prices, and silence raised them. As the sun dipped lower, his stomach twisted with hope and fear. He had enough now for food, maybe even for tomorrow. The baby dragon held the coins tight and understood that this place would see him again, whether he wanted it to or not. Coins bought food fast, and simple bread, soup, something warm to hold the first bite, made his hands shake, relief rushing through him stronger than the hunger had been. He ate slowly, forcing himself to stop before it was gone, because he did not know when the next meal would come. When he returned to the apartment, the silence felt different, heavier and sharper. The floor looked emptier without the toys that once lived there. He sat on the bed, counting what remained and what he had lost, understanding the pattern. Now trade, survive, repeat. Night came and sleep did not. He stared at the ceiling, holding the stuffed animal close, listening to the city breathe around him. The baby dragon felt smaller than ever, and older at the same time, knowing that tomorrow he would pack the bag again and walk back into the market, because staying alive was no longer a question but a routine. The next day began the same but felt different, as if the world had shifted slightly, and he was the only one who noticed. The baby dragon moved through his routine with practiced ease, packing the bag, choosing what could go and what must stay. His hands did not tremble anymore, and that scared him. The market recognized him now, not by name but by presence. A small figure at the edge, with careful eyes. Some people nodded, some ignored him. Some avoided his gaze entirely. He laid out the remaining toys, fewer than before, arranged with the same care, because care was the only thing he still fully owned. Hours passed before the moment changed everything. His stomach growled, but he ignored it, focused on keeping his face calm, his body still. He had learned that weakness invited the wrong kind of attention. Then someone stopped, not rushed, not distracted, just still, a human who crouched down to his level without reaching for the toys, without checking prices. Their eyes met his and did not slide away. The baby dragon froze, every instinct screaming to prepare for disappointment or danger, but nothing came. No bargaining, no judgment, just a quiet hello and a question about how long he had been there. He answered with shrugs and half-truths, the kind that kept adults satisfied enough to move on. But this human did not move on. They listened to what he did not say, watched how thin his wrists were, how he guarded the last toy like a secret. Instead of choosing a toy, they reached into a bag and pulled out food, set it gently between them and waited. Did not push it closer, did not tell him to eat, just waited, as if giving him control back. Piece by piece, his hands shook again when he reached for it, not from hunger alone but from confusion, kindness, felt unreal, dangerous even yet. The smell was too much to ignore. As he ate, the human stayed, talking softly about ordinary things, the weather, the market, the noise, never asking questions that would break him open, never looking away when he glanced up to check if this was real. When he finished, the human spoke again. Not about toys, not about money, but about home, and the word landed heavy and warm, all at once. The baby dragon did not answer, but something inside him cracked, just enough to let hope breathe. Next days were quiet in a way he had never known. The baby dragon returned to the market, but now he was watched, not by strangers passing quickly, but by the human, who crouched at the edge offering smiles and sometimes food without asking for anything in return. It was strange and unsettling, and yet somehow safe. He learned to talk a little more each day, saying words that were not about survival, pretending he was just another child in the noise of the city. The human listened without interrupting, without pitying, without taking control, and it made him feel seen in a way he had not remembered. One afternoon, the human reached for the last toy he had been saving. The stuffed animal pressed it gently to their chest and said nothing, just held it as if understanding that some things could not be traded or sold or given away. The baby dragon watched silently, feeling warmth in his chest. The fire inside did not burn with hunger. Today it softened with trust. They shared food together, sitting on the cracked pavement, letting the market rush around them as if it no longer mattered. The baby dragon spoke softly about small things, about the sky and the noises in the building and the world that had seemed so empty before. For the first time he did not feel invisible. He did not feel like a shadow creeping through life. He felt recognized and chosen, even though nothing had been demanded of him, and that small feeling grew in his chest, making him realize that survival could be more than just hunger and fear, that perhaps it could include care and belonging. Days passed and the rhythm of life shifted slowly. The baby dragon no longer woke to empty cupboards or the echo of silence. Instead, he woke to small lights and smells that promised warmth and food. He still carried the bag of toys sometimes, but it felt lighter, as if the weight of survival had eased just a little. If human guided him gently through routines. Meals came at predictable times, and with them laughter, sometimes soft, sometimes loud, conversations about things he had never noticed before, like clouds, shapes in the sky, stories of other children in cities far away. The baby dragon listened and learned, and slowly began to speak more of himself. Nights were no longer long and empty. He curled up under blankets that smelled of home and safety, no longer pretending scales would keep him warm. The stuffed animal sat on the shelf untouched, a quiet reminder of the days that had been hard, and of the fire he had survived outside the apartment. The city still moved fast, but inside there was a small world where he could breathe, where mistakes did not punish him, and where he could grow without the constant fear of being unseen. Baby dragon began to explore the apartment, noticing corners and windows and the way light fell in patterns he had never cared to see before. Curiosity returned, curiosity and hope intertwined, and for the first time he understood that living could be more than just staying alive. He could belong, he could learn, he could trust, and in the human's steady presence, he found the courage to believe that maybe this was the beginning of something that would last. Baby dragon placed his last toy on the highest shelf in his new room. The stuffed animal faded from years of love, and holding it felt heavy and light at the same time. It was a reminder of what he had endured and what he had survived. He ran his fingers over the worn fabric, remembering nights curled up alone in the dark when the world felt too big and too empty. He no longer needed to sell toys or trade memories for meals. He no longer counted coins or measured days by hunger. Instead, he explored his new home, moving through rooms that smelled of warmth and care. He discovered corners for hiding and windows for watching the city breathe. He learned that safety could be ordinary and quiet, and that ordinary could be enough to feel alive. Human watched him from the doorway, sometimes smiling, sometimes waiting patiently. The baby dragon understood that trust was not just given, it was earned, and that he had earned this space, this life, this small world of calm and laughter and gentle routines. He felt a fire inside that no longer burned with fear, but with something softer, stronger, and steady. At night, he curled up under blankets and looked at the shelf, the stuffed animal sitting there like a guardian of the past. He whispered stories to it, stories of markets and coins and cold nights, and he imagined it listening approvingly. It was proof that he had survived, that he had chosen to keep going. Fell asleep knowing he was no longer alone, knowing that someone had seen him, had chosen him, and that he could finally rest. The baby dragon had learned that life could begin again, that survival was only the first step, and that being loved could feel like the brightest fire of all.